100 refugees and their families prepare to settle in the Magic City.
We became convinced that Billings had a lot to offer.
Plus a new man with a new vision.
But I have the opportunity to build a department that I have envisioned for years.
I'll introduce you to Harden's police chief as he aims to get the department on the right track.
And a dam dedication.
It goes back to 1925. It's an engineering marvel.
We'll take you on a hike to Mystic Lake for a rare glimpse inside the inner workings of this unique power plant.
The MTN News starts right now.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger.
And I'm Andrea Lutz. Billings is about to get a lot more diverse.
More than 100 refugees will soon be moving to the Magic City, most from Afghanistan, as Billings becomes home to the state's second resettlement office.
Tonight, our Charlie Kleps takes a closer look at what's planned and the impact that could have on everything from schools to the local economy.
The Billings Airport will be a busy place in the next year as more than 100 adult refugees will be making their way to Billings, and that number doesn't include the many children that will accompany their families. This is where it all began, refugee families departing Fort Dix in New Jersey for new homes in America. One of those Afghan families ended up in Billings.
We welcomed a number of families into Billings and had great success.
Nancy Van Maren witnessed the integration of 4 Afghan families into the community in 2021, a big success.
Every single one of the resettled families is employed, is providing for their family.
That led to some national attention.
This effort got the attention of a resettlement agency that has been approved to open a resettlement office in Billings.
That office will open in 2024 with more than 100 adult refugees starting to arrive in January, but the influx of immigrants will be spread out through September of next year.
They're doing it at a pace that works for the community and for the refugees that arrive. It's a win for them because they're safe. It's a win for Billings because there is diversification and it just enriches our community.
But Van Maren realizes the arrival of 100 immigrant families will generate some concerns. While it's not clear how many children will be moving to Billings, the city's 3 public high schools are already full or beyond capacity.
It's challenging, but it's the right thing to do.
New Superintendent Erwin Garcia says the district is already preparing for their arrival. Those preparations include the creation of a newcomer center at the Lincoln Center, where most of these new students will attend school, at least initially.
They can actually be at the Lincoln while we teach them English and we kind of teach them about the culture. We are preparing ourselves to be good neighbors and to allow these people to not only take advantage of beautiful, wonderful country, but also that they're empowered to be functional members of society.
Van Maren says the refugees won't be given a green light to move here until they each undergo 36 months of extensive screening with federal agencies. Screenings that include everything from background checks and one-on-one interviews to medical screenings.
They're the most highly vetted immigrants in the entire system of immigration in the United States.
An intense process that Van Maren believes will ensure great additions to our city.
I would say it is an honor and it's a privilege what we're about to embark on.
In Billings, Charlie Kleps, MTN News.
The state's first resettlement center, Soft Landing, opened in Missoula in 2016. That city has seen an average of 100 refugees arrive every year. The International Rescue Committee is expecting a record 250 to arrive in 2023. Since it opened 7 years ago, Soft Landings has grown and expanded and now includes a resource center, youth programming, and the United We Eat initiative, where refugee and immigrant chefs prepare take-home meals and host supper clubs. The International Rescue Committee runs 29 offices throughout the United States, providing assistance to refugees as soon as they arrive in the country.
Harden's fledgling police department has been up and running for less than 2 years and is already on its second police chief. Chief Paul George took over the reins this summer. As I found out, he has some big aspirations for the small department.
But I have the opportunity to build a department that I have envisioned for years.
Harden's new police chief, Paul George, says he never imagined he'd one day be working in Montana.
I've been enjoying it since I've been here. I've really been enjoying the city, loving the landscape of Montana, loving the people. People are completely different than down in the southeast. People are a lot nicer. Not as much to do, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Quite a contrast from Atlanta, where the new chief last worked. Not that Harden or any place these days is immune from crime.
There's a lot of crime that comes off of the interstate into the city.
He's been busy trying to hire and train officers to get the department up to full staff.
Very community-oriented, love a community-oriented police officer in a police department.
George grew up in southeast Georgia and has been in law enforcement most of his life. He started volunteering as a police explorer at the age of 14.
When you're a young boy and you're out playing with your neighborhood friends and you play cops and robbers, most young boys grow out of that, and fortunately I never did. So I stuck with that and pursued it, and here I am today.
Here in Harden, where he might just be making Montana history.
There's not a lot of African Americans in Montana to begin with, and I've done my own research, and I think I might be the first African American chief in Montana.
Does that put any pressure on you, do you think? At all?
Not necessarily, because I've always stayed on the right path, so I don't think there's any pressure at all. I think it's a good thing, and I think it just paves the way for other minorities in the state to exceed to the top.
George says that so far people have been welcoming, and he believes he'll be able to forge a good working relationship with the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office.
I know there were some issues with the prior chief and some constituents within the county, but I'm hoping with a new face and a new vision that we won't have those same issues.
His goal, he says, is to turn this small department into one of the premier police departments in the state.
And there's definitely a need here, and that's what the community wants, and that's what I hope to give them, is the professional, effective law enforcement services that they're wanting.
The chief says that for the time being, staffing is one of the biggest challenges. The Harden Police Department is currently taking applications for more officers.
Montana leaders say the state's prisons are on track to operate above capacity for years. In response, a new state committee looking at immediate and long-term improvements is studying ways to move the system forward. Montana State Prison houses 1,600 inmates, and the Department of Corrections reports another 1,200 are in state or contracted facilities. Well, the new report says there's a need for almost 1,000 more beds over the next 20 years. But after years of changes in policy, leaders want to take another look at the data.
You've got to get some basic information pulled together if we're going to start talking about a future direction for the department.
I believe providing this committee with the most updated data is probably the best way moving forward.
Lawmakers approved more than $200 million this session for infrastructure projects at the Montana State Prison. Those changes include adding beds at the prison facilities as well as treatment centers. The committee plans to have a report ready by next fall.
Checking out Doppler radar this afternoon, you can see things are active. There's some flickers of lightning in the blue and silver there. Now keep in mind for Billings, the National Weather Service radar site is down for maintenance right now. So the showers closer to the ground we won't pick up quite as well, but the stronger storms will pick up from neighboring radar sites down in Riverton, up at Glasgow, over towards Bismarck for the eastern plains. If we back the view up a little bit, you can see the progression of that storm continuing mainly right along the Montana-Wyoming line. That's behind a cold front that's sinking through the region. As that front comes in, it's going to increase the amount of smoke that's potentially going to move into the area across the eastern plains tomorrow into Friday. Look at the weekend forecast, all coming up in a few minutes.
Well, children battling cancer is one of the most heartbreaking things you can imagine. A group of Billings moms, each raising a child diagnosed with the disease, wants all of us to know we can help these kids by donating something more valuable than money. MTN's Haley Monaco explains.
Lamonte could ride around his front yard for hours.
Ready, set, go!
At his third birthday last weekend, he looked like any other happy and healthy toddler, but things were much tougher at 2.
He got a blood transfusion on his birthday last year, so.
In July 2022, Lamonte's mother noticed he wasn't acting like himself.
I had taken him in to check his blood work to see if he was anemic. The levels came back not so good. The next morning we got the call that he did have leukemia.
It's one of the hardest phone calls of McKenna Lataski's life.
Something you never thought that you would ever have to hear.
Next thing Lataski knew, she and Lamonte were heading to Colorado, where they would remain for nearly a year During his treatment, he had 6 blood transfusions. Now back in Billings, life is returning back to normal for the family of 4.
He's currently in remission/maintenance. He has about a year left of treatment, so we're getting there.
This is Lamonte's photo, joined by 6 other children in our area battling childhood cancer. And the mothers who know all too well just how much their children rely on these blood and platelet transfusions have put together a virtual blood drive for the month of September.
They've taken a very unfortunate situation and one of the hardest things I think any of us can imagine going through and turned it into educating people.
Tori Robbins with Vitalant praised the group putting on the blood drive.
The number one reason people don't donate blood is that nobody's ever asked them face to face to do it.
The blood drive is virtual, so a person doesn't have to be in Billings to pledge to donate.
You say, I am strong.
I'm strong. To help children just like Lamonte stay strong. In Billings, Haley Monaco, MTN News.
Still to come on the MTN 530 News on Q2, a Mystic Lake mystery. We travel high above for a unique view of hydropower in Montana. That story is next.
And jumping to new heights, one Joliet volleyball player is taking her game to the next level. We'll hear from our Athlete of the Week coming up in just a bit.
Visit. From Montana's news leader, you're watching the MTN 530 News.
More than just Montana's tallest peaks, the Beartooth Mountains hold a lot of unique points of interest, including a high-altitude dam that's been powering Montana towns for 100 years.
As Northwestern Energy expands its energy portfolio, the dam tucked away at Mystic Lake is now getting a new name.
MTN's Jackie Coffin takes us up 6,500 feet for a bird's-eye view of hydropower in Montana.
You can call it a sign of the times. The dam at Mystic Lake has been renamed Roe Dam, as you can already see here on signs for some of the most popular hiking trails here in the Beartooths.
It's the crown jewel, the flagship of the fleet.
Out of Northwestern Energy's 11 hydro projects spread across Montana, there may not be another quite as unique as the small but powerful dam at the north end of Mystic Lake.
It's an engineering marvel.
The history of hydropower is written across the mountains here, and at the base is a station house where power has been converted and transferred out for nearly 100 years.
It goes to Columbus, Abdorkey, Red Lodge, Stillwater Mine, and the surrounding areas.
While the station house and its equipment has lasted since 1925, to see what's so impressive about this hydro project, you have to take a hike. Up 3 miles and 1,100 vertical feet of climb. The reward is a picturesque mountain view of the sparkling Mystic Lake.
It flows year-round.
Which dam electrician Joe Ruprecht sees as a big natural battery.
There's 52 other lakes that feed into Mystic, and we can just kind of bring up our generation up and down to when it's needed.
Because of the natural elevation change and the so-called head storage of where the snow melt-fed lake meets the dam, Ruprecht controls how much water to store and release based on the need for power.
It's kind of unique for Montana anyhow to have this kind of head pressure to produce the 12 megawatts that we generate here.
The Mystic Hydro Project is one of 11 hydro projects purchased by Northwestern Energy in 2018 for nearly $1 billion. Then CEO Bob Rowe says it was a necessary move to expand and diversify the company's energy assets.
The values in our Montana system aren't just the energy production, it's also the ability to help keep the grid stable.
Together, the 11 hydro projects generate more than 630 megawatts of power inside Montana. 1 megawatt of power is enough to power 750 homes all at once.
The icing on the cake is the stewardship opportunities to help maintain and improve Montana's rivers.
While the dam at Mystic Lake is Northwestern Energy's smallest, generating 12 megawatts of power, it stands out as Rowe's favorite, planting the idea for a perfect retirement gift.
And the reason we knew that was his favorite is because in the world of Zoom, his background was a picture of that dam.
And there's no sign that the old dam with a new name is slowing down.
I was speechless, choked up. It was extraordinary.
At Mystic Lake, Jackie Coffin, MTN News.
As joining us again, parts of the area have seen some rain today.
That's right, and our best chance of rain that we're going to see for quite a while. We'll take a look at the latest radar and let you know what to expect for the weekend next.
The MTN 530 News continues right after this.